Reading with your kids.
Hola, ni hao, konnichiwa, assalamu alaikum, shalom, mahaba, ciao, bonjour, namaste, jambo, bienvenidos. Hi, my name is Jedley. Welcome to Reading with Your Kids. We are coming to you from the beautiful, wonderful, historical, absolutely fabulous neighborhood of Reedville in the southwest corner of Boston, Massachusetts. We are so honored and delighted that you join us in our mission to help all families grow closer through reading. We do that by sharing fun, thoughtful, and thought-provoking conversations with fascinating people who just happen to write books for kids of all ages. Please be sure to tell all of your family and friends about the show. Tell your kids' teachers, their librarian, their youth minister, the principal of their school, and let them know that they can hear us on the WREB AM/FM 24/7 radio network. And they can find us on the iHeartRadio app, Spotify, Apple Good Pods, Podcast Addict, Amazon Music, CastBox, wherever you find your favorite shows. We have a wonderful show for you today. Leticia Ordaz and her son, Bronx Baeza, are here to celebrate Super Peanut and the Big Bully. And we'll also be looking back at an episode that first aired back in November 11th of 2022. We're celebrating Women's History Month with PJ Hoover as she celebrates 15 incredible women problem solvers.
You've heard the whispers. You've seen it on TV. You may have even seen the movie. Now it's time to bring Dungeons and Dragons directly to you with D&D for Hire!
More than just a game, D&D lets you step into the role of a hero you create and guide them on fantastical adventures with your friends. Perfect for beginners and experts alike, D&D for Hire is sure to delight and entertain your kids for weeks on end.
Such a fun game. There are endless possibilities. There's so many things that you can do. It's so much fun.
Our son Eli loves D&D. It's like his favorite thing to do all week.
I was like 15 when I joined. I'm 21 now. There are people who are in our party, really learn to come out of their shells.
Whether you're near or far, whether you're looking for a birthday party or a campaign to keep you adventuring for years to come, D&D for Hire has you covered. Learn more at dndforhire.com. That's dndforhire.com. D&D for Hire, bringing the adventure to you. D&D for Hire runs games digitally over Zoom or in person in select areas.
This episode of the Reading with Your Kids podcast is brought to you by I Am Musical, Adventures of Waffles, written by Barbara Brown. Waffles is a feisty and funny dog who cannot play an instrument, sing, or compose music, but somehow is convinced that she is musical. In this book, Crouton the Corgi spends the day trying to figure out how his best friend Waffles could possibly be musical when all she does is make a musical mess everywhere she goes. This story is an opportunity for children to see themselves as valid and important contributors to our musical culture, regardless of their musical abilities, while also being the first of its kind to remind children and their parents that music belongs to all of us. Get your copy today. I Am Musical, Adventures of Waffles, written by Barbara Brown. This episode of the Reading with Your Kids podcast is brought to you by A is for Always, an adoption alphabet, written by Linda Cutting. Linda tells us that this book is inspired by her daughter, a Chinese-American girl adopted into an all-white family when she was only 6. She stomped down the hall carrying 2 books, demanding to know why her adoption book was different from her white brother's. Linda says her daughter asked her to write a book for adoptees from everywhere so no one would feel left out. A book that addressed the challenges as well as the joys of adoption. You and your kids are going to love this beautiful book. It's a beautiful message, and the illustrations are absolutely beautiful. Every page shows a different adopted family of cuddly animals welcoming and cherishing a new child. A is for Always. It hit #1 on Amazon for new releases. It should be in your family library. Get your copy today. A is for Always, an adoption alphabet by Linda Cutting. Join us right now from the beautiful state of California. Our guests are here today to celebrate a really important picture book that's going to make a big difference in the lives of a lot of kids. The name of the book is Super Peanut and the Big Bully. Please welcome back to the show co-author number 1, Leticia Ordaz. Hey, Leticia, how are you?
Hey, Jed. So great to be here with you. It's so glad to be back on the Reading with Kids podcast.
And also joining us is her co-author and son, Bronx Baeza. Hey, Bronx, what's going on, buddy?
Oh, it's good. It feels good writing a book and making other kids' lives like in the hand of books.
I couldn't have said that better myself.
Thank you.
So, Bronx, do you want to tell us real quickly what your book is all about and why you decided to write it?
Okay. My book is about kids like bullying. Like in my school, I've seen a lot of bullying, like people shoving, pushing, calling they're not good enough. I wrote this book so that could all change. I want the whole world to know that kids that are the smallest kids sometimes make a big difference.
Boy, I am so glad you said that because I am vertically challenged. I'm just probably a little bit taller than you, and I'm a very old man. So I like to think that I did something good coming in a small short package. It's not really small. But how was it, Bronx? How was it writing with your mom? Because, she's a famous children's author and a famous...
It feels good that I could write with my mom and my whole family.
Excellent. And what do you think about the illustrations?
I think I couldn't imagine it better.
I have to tell you, Bronx, you are media savvy. It doesn't surprise me at all. You're better than some politicians that I hear on TV.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, he handpicked Juan Calle after seeing the illustrations of that girl on TV could be me. So he wanted to choose his own illustrator for this one.
Yeah. And Leticia, how did it feel writing a book with your son?
It was pretty special. He came up with the idea on his own. He was actually 5 years old. Now he's 9.
Yeah.
But he saw me writing The Adventures of Mr. McCaw, and he wanted to write his own book. So he asked to borrow my laptop one day when he was only 5, and he said, "Mom, how do I spell Super Peanut?" And so he started typing this out and then started voice to text a script for me. And all of a sudden he asked me for my email, and he emailed me something that he did voice to text. And he said, "This is the first draft of my children's book." And so this started 4 years ago.
Wow. At 5 years old and you're sending emails. That is pretty good, Bronx.
Yeah.
Well, that's wonderful. So what's the story all about? Who is Super Peanut?
Oh, that's me.
You're Super Peanut.
Mm-hmm.
And who's this big bully that's bothering you?
Super Peanut is Bronx. He was the tiniest one at school, and he used to call himself Tiny Peanut. Grulow is actually a boy, but in the book, the kids at school see him as a monster because he's acting like a monster, and he's laughing at kids with braces, throwing kids in the trash, ripping up homework. So when he finally discovers his kindness, thanks to Super Peanut, he turns back into a boy with blue hair. He's no longer a monster, and the kids say, "We knew you weren't a monster, so stop acting like one."
That's beautiful. Bronx, do you know what I love about that story?
What?
Is that it helps us, first off, it helps us and helps kids understand that being a bully, it's not good. And it hurts a lot of people. But I also love the fact that in this story, you help kids understand that bully is also a kid, and it's probably a kid that's hurting really bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. How did you have so much wisdom at such a young age to know that?
I have dyslexia, so I don't know, it just popped in my head.
I hear a lot of people tell me that dyslexia, they think dyslexia is their superpower.
Yeah.
I actually just wrote something at school for back to school, and it said, "Dyslexia is my superpower." But this book is also about kindness being a superpower and not making fun of kids even when they have extra challenges. So maybe that's why it was also near and dear to his heart.
I think so. You know, Leticia, you, as I mentioned, you're a news anchor out in California, and you've probably been covering stories about bullying not only in schools but in the workplace. It's a pretty big issue.
It's an enormous issue, and especially at schools. And I love going to schools and sharing the kindness message. So I'm super excited about this book because I get to take my son with me to some of these readings, and we get to share the message of kindness. And I think it's going to change a lot of minds and a lot of hearts. And there's just going to be a wider message of kindness throughout campuses everywhere.
I certainly hope so. Bronx, what do you think? Do you ever take the time to think about the fact that you could, because my son was the target of a bully when he was in middle school. And he had a really hard time. He didn't want to tell us. And somebody like you stood up for him, came to me and told me that he was being bullied. And that kid kind of changed my son's life. Have you ever taken the time to think that your book, Super Peanut and the Big Bully, is going to change some kids' lives?
Yeah. That's why I wrote it.
Yeah. Does that make you feel pretty cool?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's pretty anxious to get this book out. He kept saying, "Mom, you're working on so many other books. When is my book going to be published?" So it's finally going to be coming out in February 2nd. So, he's very excited for the world to see this book.
I can't wait. Have you shared the book with some of your classmates yet?
No, I only shared it with one of my teachers. I gave them a very first copy in the whole world.
Uh-huh. And you're going to get some extra points and maybe a boost up in your grades for that?
Yeah.
So he had a message. I'm doing career day at his school
Tomorrow.
this week, and he said, "Mom, it's tomorrow." And he said, "Mom, can we give everybody a copy of this book in my class? I want everyone to have a free copy." So that was an act of kindness that he suggested to introduce his classmates to this book.
Wow, that is awesome. You are a very kind young man.
Thank you.
Yeah. But you're not a good businessman yet. You know, those kids, they would have bought your book. So, but no, you're a good...
Something funny happened at some readings. Some readings when me and my brother, helping my family. My mom and dad, me and my brother have to pass out books, and some people are like, "Hey, is it for free?" And they're like, "Oh, yes." They're like excited they got a free book.
Well, that is really wonderful. And, you know, that's one of the things that I'm so impressed about your mom is because I know that we've talked about the fact that she's brought a lot of free books to kids throughout California and also down in Mexico, too. Am I right about that?
Yeah, and some in
the orphanage. Yes, we'd love to visit Casa Hogar.
Yeah, and some very, very far away.
Yeah. Are you planning, Bronx, to have this book available in Spanish like a lot of your mom's other books?
Yeah, it's in Spanish and English.
Ah, muy bien, muy bien.
Es bilingüe.
I'm sure you are. This old man isn't, but I try. Well, Bronx, it was amazing to meet you, and thank you for sharing this story about your book.
Thank you.
Yeah. Can I talk to your mom a little bit more? I know people want to hear about her other books, too.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, Bronx.
Bye.
You know, Leticia, that was wonderful because it's kind of like an extension of reading with your kids, writing with your kids. What a great idea.
Isn't that awesome? I know, yes. And it was totally his idea. I did not come up with this idea. He gets all the credit for it. So it's exciting to just be able to, inspire them. The fact that they're even thinking that they can write books and then do it. You know, when I was his age, I could never even imagine writing a book. I never even met an author growing up until, I became an adult. So this is a brand new territory for our family, and I'm so glad to open these doors where my kids know that at any age they could be an author.
Yeah. And I think it's super, I mean, obviously as an author, as a TV anchor, in the media, you have a lot of resources that a typical parent may not have, but you've done something that every parent can do, which is to inspire their kids and to reinforce. They came to you with a dream, and you said, let me see how I can help you make that happen.
Absolutely. I can't wait to share some pictures with you. He actually drew the first sketches of Super Peanut, and then I compared them to what the illustrator drew, and it's spot on. It was a little peanut with a cape, and so it's kind of like the finished product, and I just love how creative he was able to be and how he was even able to inspire the illustrations.
That is great. I mean, as a mom, you must be, as we say here in Boston, you must be like wicked proud that he would not only come up with this idea, but stick with it for 4 years. That's a long attention span.
Absolutely. And every day he would remind me, we have to finish this book. We have to finish this book. But there was a couple of other books in the lineup. So I'm so glad that we were able to take the time, though. As you know, books don't come out overnight. And I really wanted to spend the time to make this right, to have the perfect illustrations, to get the writing just right. And then I included a fun fact page with the author's note, and people got to see him working on the computer as he was in the process of writing this book. So I kind of just want to walk the readers through the whole process of this. And since he became an author, I also want to encourage other young people, and how exciting, because I tell kids already, you can be an author, but now when they see my son, they're going to believe, yes, that they indeed can also be authors. So I love that part of it as well.
Absolutely. Hey, obviously, a kid who is experiencing bullying at school, this would be a fantastic book for that child. A kid who is bullying other kids, this is also a great book. But I think this is a book that all the other kids in the class, the majority of kids, the bystanders, the kids who aren't being targeted, the kids who aren't being a bully, but the kids who see it every day, I think this is an important book for them to read. Can you talk a little bit about why it may be important for those kids to have this book in their family library?
Oh, absolutely. And it talks about this in the author's note. We don't want kids to just be bystanders and witnessing this, because oftentimes it's like a chain reaction. When one kid is being bullied, the rest go along with it, and maybe they're not the harassers, but they're laughing with the bully, and they're playing along with it. And then all of a sudden, nobody likes the kid that the bully doesn't like. So it's just like a chain reaction. So I really hope that this book teaches kids to be upstanders. If you see something, say something, and don't go along with what that bully is saying. If a kid's being picked on, walk away from that situation. Go get a teacher if you think you can't address the matter yourself. We don't want to put anyone at risk, but at the same time, we don't want you to join the bully. That's not being kind, laughing at another kid, or not doing anything about it. So I really hope it sparks an upstander movement.
Absolutely. Yes. As I told Bronx, I've been doing educational magic shows that are talking to kids about that very thing, standing up, because all of the studies show that the best deterrent to bullying and bullying behavior is the other kids saying something about it, standing up and saying, no, that's not cool. That's not acceptable here.
Absolutely. I think that's going to happen at more and more schools, and we can't wait for this message to get out there. And I know it's just troubling that it continues to happen. I mean, for the food the kids bring to school, for a variety of reasons, for the clothes that kids wear, like kids are under so much pressure now. And if we don't buy into the bullying, I think that the world is going to be a better place if more kids learn to, hey, I have the power to stop that bully, not necessarily by fighting that bully, but by saying something, by letting them know it's not right. It's not cool to be a bully.
Absolutely. Hey, Leticia, I kidded Bronx about, not giving away books and selling them, but do you think there's any chance we can get some of these books down in Washington, D.C.? Because I see an awful lot of bullying behavior coming out of some adults that should know better.
Oh, absolutely. Let's send them to Washington. In fact, one of the pages on the spread is Bronx in the White House as the President of the United States. And just quickly, just a little snippet. It says, I'm Bronx Baeza, Super Peanut and President of the United States of America. My passion is helping people work through their differences, just like I did with Grulow in the 2nd grade. I've got a lot more people to help these days, but I promise you this, if someone needs help, you can bet I'll be there to save the day. And there he is.
What a beautiful, beautiful spread. That's amazing. I love this. I really do love this. And I love the message. I love that you wrote this with your son. And I'm also really excited for you, your Cielo Lindo publication, how it's really grown over since we first met a few years back.
Absolutely. It's been 4 years now since I started Cielito Lindo Books, and it's really exploded into a reading movement. I've now become an international reading ambassador. I'm asked to travel all over to talk about reading with kids, visiting with kids, interacting with families and parents. My favorite part is cafecito with the parents at the schools and enticing parents on techniques to read with their kids and just making it a daily hobby. Nothing that you have to do because I don't want to make reading something that's not fun. My goal is to make reading something that kids enjoy. So it's not like another task, another forced thing to do. It's like a movement to create readers, lifelong readers. And what's really special is I've teamed up with migrant camps throughout California. So I'm going to be visiting about 200 camps and giving children books to create readers in the community. I'm so excited about that.
That's wonderful. I love this. People are going to want to ask, hi, you're mom to 2 kids, you're a wife, you're a big time TV star. Where do you find time to write children's books?
I only sleep about 4 hours a night, so maybe that's my secret. But it's really, truly a passion. I don't feel like it's work when I'm, going to visits after I get off of my shift on the news. It's something that I truly enjoy. It just lights the fire inside of me when I connect with these children, and there's little teardrops, falling off their face when the kids see characters that look like them. It's been so impactful to reach the community and to show kids that yes, they can be characters in a book too. I've mentioned this before. There's only 5, to 7% Latinx children featured in books. So it's not something that kids see every day. So when kids see books of characters that look like them, they want to pick up these books, and their parents are sending me messages on Instagram and Facebook saying, my kid can't put down this book. They want to read them over and over again, and they think that they're the characters in the book. So that's really special.
That's really wonderful. Hey, I want to take this time to ask you 2 questions that are not related to Super Peanut in the Big Bully, and we'll get back to that in a moment. But we're approaching an election year, and our kids are going to be home. They're going to be exposed on social media to a lot of unpleasant discussions and communication, and they're going to see it on TV, and they're going to be hearing politicians that should know better not behaving the way we would want our kids to behave. How can we talk to our kids and help them understand that yes, that person may be a very powerful politician, but the way they're acting, it's not what we want you to do?
I think it's an important lesson for all of us that sometimes adults don't behave properly either. So I think that children seeing that, they won't want to be like that. We need to do better. And I hope that this just sparks a kindness movement, and that parents can talk to their kids, that we can't undermine the fact that kindness is a superpower, and adults shouldn't be bashing other adults. We need to all get along and work together to make this country a better place, not divide our country, but come together in unity, because our country deserves it. Our children deserve to see better examples.
Absolutely. Hey, one of the things I love about our conversation tonight is you've gone back to that theme, kindness, a movement of kindness. And I know from my experiences, the schools that really make a difference in terms of bullying are the schools that they don't have the say no to bullying. Well, they may have a few of those banners around, but they instead of pushing the say no, they push the positive. Say yes to respect, say yes to being kind, and they get that momentum going. And that's where the real change is happening. So I'm really happy that that's the drum that you're beating here, because I think that's going to make a big difference.
Absolutely. It's the little things that we can all do. It's writing those thank you cards that, people don't write anymore. They just text and say thank you. It's opening the door for someone at school. It's saying something kind to your teacher. There's so many little things that we can do every day, and it doesn't cost us any money to be kind. So I really hope that I can take that message into the school. I have curriculum that was developed for this book, and kindness curriculum that I think is going to be really fun for kids to do, and to find their own superpower when it comes to the things they can do with the power of kindness.
Yeah. Hey, I was wondering if you could show my interns a kindness. I have 6 amazing interns from Emerson College on the team this semester. They're very impressive young people, and 4 of them are journalism majors. And they'll be out in the world really soon. Do you have a piece of advice I can share with them?
I just want to tell them to follow their dreams. I think journalism is one of those fields that is not a lost art. It's here to stay. Quality journalism belongs in America. And I hope they don't get discouraged with some of the negative talk that you might hear and the rhetoric that you hear out there. Just stay true to your heart. Always get both sides. Don't include your own judgment in the stories that you cover. Your community is depending on you to be a voice for them. So you never want to lose their trust. Believe in yourself. If this is a field that you truly love, you're going to wake up every day excited to go to work, being a voice for your community. And congratulations on your choice. It's one that I truly, truly enjoy.
Yeah. Leticia, please tell everybody where we can go to find out more about Super Peanut and the Big Bully, see pictures of Bronx, and learn all about your other books.
Absolutely. Well, I hope it's in libraries across the country because access is a huge thing for me. I want people to be able to get my books for free if possible. But of course, you can go to my website, cielitolindobooks.com, and request an autographed copy for your classroom or your home library. It's also available on Amazon, and definitely contact your local bookstores about carrying it because I love for my books to be in local mom and pop shops. Supporting local is very important.
Absolutely. And you can go, if you go to your local public library and they don't have a copy of Super Peanut and the Big Bully, you can just ask very nicely, ask very kindly, and because librarians really love that. They want to know what kind of books you want in your library.
Absolutely. And one last thing I do want to mention is the book is bilingual, and sometimes people get confused and will say, well, I don't speak Spanish. Well, guess what? You can pick up some words. The book is in English and Spanish on each page, so everyone can understand it. And it's always fun when I go to schools and then I get messages from parents who don't speak Spanish, and they come back and tell their parents that they speak another language. So it's also empowering kids to say, hey, you know what? Bilingual is a superpower, and I can speak Spanish now. So it's fun to hear from families who, even if they don't speak Spanish at home, kids are anxious to learn a new language, and they quickly absorb it and pick it up, and that's a superpower.
Amen. Learning another language when you're 5, it is so much easier than when you're 95 plus like me. So check it out. We've had a great time speaking to the authors of Super Peanut and the Big Bully. Bronx Baeza was here a little bit earlier, and his mom is still here, Leticia Ordaz. Hey, Leticia, thanks so much for being back with us.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure talking to you. As always, I love your podcast.
This episode of the Reading with Your Kids podcast is brought to you by And the Trees Talk Back, written and illustrated by Frederick J. Burns, a gem in children's literature. And the Trees Talk Back is an enchanting and magical story about a young girl named Amanda who discovers she can talk to trees. The magical adventure and whimsical tree illustrations will delight adults and children of all ages and will inspire kindness, empathy, caring, and courage to stand against evil and give them a new appreciation of the trees that surround us. I love this book. It's a great way to inspire kids to see those who are different and who've been overlooked, and to understand that we can all be wonderful friends and that we're all part of a beautiful human family. Get your copy today. And the Trees Talk Back by Frederick J. Burns. Hey, quick question. Are you raising a reader? Are you ready to embark on a journey of imagination and adventure with your family? Then look no further than Dear Fam, the ultimate destination for family reading fun. Join the Dear Fam movement and unlock your child's love for reading with Dear Fam, the reading journal tracking app. Develop critical thinking skills. Set up reading goals with your child as they earn reading badges. Get notified when your child shares their reading journals. Share with family, friends, and teachers. Start your family's next reading adventure today with Dear Fam. That's spelled DEARFAM, where reading together means bonding forever. Dear Fam, now available on the App Store and at Google Play. Dear Fam. This episode of the Reading with Your Kids podcast is brought to you by Lucas and the Game of Chance, a thrilling middle grade novel written by Anthony L. Mena. It is a Reading with Your Kids certified great read. While Lucas is playing his flute at the seawall one day, he befriends a mysterious talking dancing snake that rewards him with fortune and favor. Some years later, tempted by greed and pride, Lucas loses all of his riches and his family. He now must set off on a treacherous journey through a frightening forest filled with suspense and strange creatures. To find Destiny, her son, Ilion, the sun, her daughter, Luna, the moon. These celestial guardians will surely allow him to reverse his misfortune, restore his honor, and win back all that he loves and treasures. Won't they? This is a reimagined Greek folk tale, Lucas in the Game of Chance. It's illuminated with dramatic and evocative pen and ink drawings that provide an ideal backdrop to the dark intrigue that fills this haunting story of human struggle, courage, and resilience. You and your kids are going to love it. Lucas and the Game of Chance by Anthony L. Mena. It is a Reading with Your Kids certified great read. Coming to us from the beautiful city of Austin in the state of Texas. Our guest today is here to celebrate problem solvers. It's part of the Women of Power series. Please welcome to the show, PJ Hoover. Hey, PJ, how are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm wonderful. I'm really excited. I think we've had all of the authors of the different Women of Power series books on, and it just seems like a fabulous series.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I mean, I'm thrilled. First of all, thank you for having me here on the podcast, but I'm thrilled to be a part of the series. Like, honestly, when I got the opportunity to do it, I was over the moon pleased.
Yeah. So who are the problem solvers we're going to meet in your book?
Well, so there are 15, and I'll add a 16th in there because there's an introduction by me. I used to be an engineer before I became a full-time writer, so I can be like the 16th problem solver in the book. But it's honestly a range of amazing women who are not only doing fantastic work in the fields of engineering and coding, but they also have overcome some amazing obstacles to get to the places where they are in their backgrounds and the obstacles that they face currently in the market in engineering and computer science, which both are technically thought of as male-dominated fields.
Let's talk about that. And I want to talk about that for a very selfish reason. Somebody very, very dear to my heart, my niece, just entered into college, and she is studying biomedical engineering. And in 5 years, she hopes to graduate with a master's and get into the field. And she's at a wonderful technical college, and she is only one of a handful of women at the college. And already she started in September, it's the end of October, and already it's like, I want to be around more women. What's going on with this field? Why is it? And I've heard different thoughts about this, that women are being excluded, and other people saying, well, yeah, women just aren't in, they like relationships, and guys like things, and that's why guys are in engineering, and women go into nursing because they like people. And you've been in there, you've lived it, and then you've studied it by writing about these women. What's your thoughts?
Okay, so yeah, it's really interesting because let's say I started college in 1987, so that's over 30 years ago, and I was one of 4 women engineers in the computer engineering program. And so you're talking about now, 30-some years later, and not much has changed with those numbers. Our statistics have not changed in the way that they should. And there are some really good reasons why this is the case. First off, one of those reasons is right now, let's say there's a young girl in elementary school who's good at math and science. She's the girl that's going to get tapped on the shoulder and told, hey, you could be an engineer. Whereas, any guy thinks he could be an engineer. He doesn't have to get tapped on the shoulder. He doesn't have to be the kid who's good at math and science. And so I think we need to change from the very early days. We shouldn't just single out the girls who we think are good at math and science. We should let every girl out there know from a very, very early age that she can be an engineer or a computer scientist. She doesn't have to be good at math and science, whatever that means. Those are learned skills. And so that's one of the big things. I think one of the other things is there's a stigma. It's a really interesting stigma around engineering. And so I don't know how old you are, but I was around in the very early 80s when, home computers were a brand new thing. Mm-hmm. And I remember we got our Commodore 64 along with thousands of other people around the country. And where did those computers go? Well, most of the time they went in the basement of homes, right? And so all of a sudden you have this basement, geeky coder image in people's minds of them living in their mother's basements, coding on computers all day. And I think that image has stuck around since the dawn of the home computer age. And so that's one of the images that we need to fight also, because it's not like this cool image. And so girls see that and they're like, oh, I don't want to be some person stuck in my basement coding all day long. And so we're trying to break that stigma also. And so those are just a couple of the many, many reasons why we still haven't seen the increase in numbers like we really should have by now.
That's really interesting. First off, I mean, a boy or a girl being good at math in first or second grade, it might be an indication that they're going to continue to be good at math throughout high school, but it's not a guarantee. And the opposite is true. Just because a kid might be struggling in first grade doesn't mean that they're not going to get it and fall in love with math at some point. So I absolutely agree with you. We should be encouraging all kids to explore all the opportunities that we have out there, and get rid of the stigma that a lot of guys may prevent guys from going into nursing, for example. The image of the nerdy guy in the basement. This is the first for me. You're the first person who's brought up that, hey, girls don't want to be thought of as a nerdy guy in the basement. I don't blame them.
But that's where our home computers went. I mean, literally, that's where they went. Yeah, because people didn't want them out in their living spaces, So.
Mm-hmm. Well, when you got your first computer, I had my first apartment, and it was upstairs. I didn't have a basement. My parents had thrown me out of the house. But I was one of those people who it was like computers. I can't. I can't do that. And I learned how to do computers on one of the first Macintoshes and boy, once I said I can do this, it was like never learned how to code, but I'm like, this machine can help me do so many amazing things.
Yes. Yeah, once you actually learn the power of the computer, and I had a Macintosh, a Mac Plus in college, and I could churn out reports that looked better than anybody's out there.
Yeah. So, of the 15 women that you profile in this book, who is the woman that surprised you the most?
So I would say the one that surprised me the most, it's actually the very first chapter in the book. Gabriela Gonzalez is the one that surprised me the most. And this woman, we set up our Zoom call. All the interviews were done by Zoom, and we set up the call. I thought, okay, I had my list of questions of what I was going to ask. And I just thought, she'll tell me about her job and what she does day to day. And I said, well, how did you get started? What obstacles did you overcome? And she started telling me a story about, she grew up, when she was young, she grew up in Mexico, and they were a middle-class family, her and her sister and her mom and her dad. And, then her father was abusive, and the parents got divorced, and the mom moved to the Rio Grande Valley here in Texas, so across the border from Mexico. And they, back when they had been in Mexico, being that they were middle class, college had always been an option, a possibility. And then when they moved to the Rio Grande Valley, they discovered, like, they had no money. They were basically the poor of the poor there. And so college just went out the door. There was just basically no hope for college at that point, as far as she, believed at the time. And then, they had to move from Texas all the way up to Washington State because the ex-husband was threatening them. And so they move all the way, up across the country to where they have like maybe one relative, and they become migrant workers. And so basically she's doing this migrant working job. She's trying to go to school. She's trying to take care of her sister. She's nannying, trying to make money, trying to make any kind of ends meet. And just when, things couldn't get any worse, the mom has a horrible car accident, and it was just like so many things were stacked against this poor woman, right? And she wanted to go to college. She had always had these dreams, but she's like, I just don't know how I can do that. And she was part of a youth group at a church on a nearby reservation, and one of the youth, mentors there basically said, hey, have you ever thought about applying for this degree? And she's like, how could I apply for a degree? And he's like, just do it. Let's figure it. They have scholarships for this kind of thing. And she did that, and she was able to go to college and get her degree, and now she is an engineer. But it was like if she hadn't had that right mentoring, right role modeling, and actually taken it and acted upon it, I mean, her life could be completely different. And so I just love that, no matter, there's a million excuses for why somebody can't go to college, why somebody can't be an engineer, whatever it is. But there's also ways that we can get through almost any difficulty that is thrown our way. And I think that's what, not just her story, but so many of these women's stories really show us in this book is, find a way to get through the difficulties that life throws you, and make it happen. Believe in your future and make it happen.
I love that, because we are all going to face obstacles in our lives. Despite the fact that there are so many parents these days who want to bubble wrap their kids and keep them from feeling any disappointment or getting any scraped knees or whatever. The reality is we're going to fall down. We're going to have adversity. And if we can teach our kids at an early age to have resilience and to bounce back up and to keep going for those dreams, they're going to be in a much better place.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, another of the women, Sue Black, she was one of my favorites that I interviewed. Actually, they're all my favorites, so I'm not going to say that. But she is a professor over in the UK. And, when she was a very early teenager, her mother died, and her father quickly remarried. And she said it was like one of these like wicked stepmother kind of things. And basically, she moved out at a very young age because she had this, abusive house she was living in, and she got married. And so by the age of 20, she had 3 children, and, her husband was abusive. And so she didn't know what she was going to do. She basically worked in a record store. That's how, what her job was. She's 20 years old. She's in an abusive marriage and has 3 children. And finally, the one evening he threatens to kill them all. And she's like, I have to get out of here. And she goes to a friend's house. He threatens to kill them there. And then she goes to a women's shelter. And basically she lives in this women's shelter. And she's safe. At least she's in a safe place. She's gotten herself out of this dangerous situation. And then as her kids, are going to school and stuff, she's like, well, what am I going to do with my life? Here she's like 22 years old. She's like, well, maybe I'll take an evening class in computer science. And now she has a PhD. She's a professor. She's a world-renowned speaker talking about the hardships that she's overcome, about the work that she does and everything. And I just love hearing her story. I mean, she said like the first day she walked into her computer science class with her spiky pink hair and her Doc Martens, she didn't fit in even back then. But, she had to find a way to fit in. And a lot of that, what she found once she was in the field and going to conferences, is like forming groups to help women find each other, because she would go to these conferences and it would be like all men sitting around talking to each other, kind of turning the cold shoulder to her and stuff like that. And so she had to find a way to bring together groups also to help not just herself feel involved, but help other women too. And so that's one of the big things that she tries to do.
Now, I don't want somebody out there listening to think that the only way to become a successful engineer, if you're a woman, is to grow up in an abusive family.
That's definitely not the case at all, yes.
Okay. Do we have a happier story amongst the 15 that you met?
I mean, there's a lot of happy stories. Okay, so here's one that has a challenge, but it's not an abusive relationship, if you will, because I like to think that each woman brings something different to the table. And so Meredith Westafer, she is a vice president at Tesla. And, so that's a great company. She basically had moved to North Carolina with her husband. She's an industrial engineer, and, they were working there. He had the job, and then she got this amazing job opportunity, out far west to go work for Tesla, and she was like, they talked about it, and she's like, I don't know if I could. And they talked it through, and he's like, they decided that she needed to do this. And so for 2 years, they worked through a long distance relationship. And I think that's also another important thing, why a lot of women are afraid to do a career like engineering, is they're afraid of like the family implications, or they aren't going to be there to do the laundry or the cooking or whatever it is. And I think, so they worked through this long distance relationship for 2 years. And I think that's something that women need to accept also, is like, it doesn't just come down to women to do all the responsibilities around the house. And that's something that I think women bring that on themselves a lot too, that we need to learn to release and learn to speak up more for ourselves and say where we need help and what help we need. So yeah, there's many happy stories. I like Sophia Velasquez. When she grew up in this family, her family always wanted her to be a doctor. And finally, the one time they're like, okay, we accept that she's not going to be a doctor. But they still didn't quite know what she did, right? So she sent a picture of herself in a clean room suit. I'm not sure if you know what a clean room suit is.
Yeah.
And so basically she sends
and everything.
Yeah, so she sends her parents a picture of herself in this clean room suit, and her parents tell all their friends about their daughter, the astronaut, But she had one of my favorite analogies that in the whole book, and it's because at the end of each chapter there's something that I try to end at the end of each chapter with some kind of highlight or some kind of takeaway. And I loved the one that she gave, which was, she's a very short woman. She's maybe 5'2", and she's married to somebody who's about 6'2", 6'3". So he's a foot taller than her, let's just say. And one of the things they love doing as a family is rock climbing. And, when they go out to the rock climbing wall, he has these giant long arms that can reach way high and everything like that, and she can't reach the same rocks that he can. And her whole point was, we're all going for the same goal. We're all trying to get to the top, but everybody's path that gets taken, everybody's path is going to be different. And that's an important thing to keep in mind, is like, we have 15 amazing stories in this book, but anybody who picks this book up and reads it and wants to be an engineer or a coder is going to take a different path than anybody else in here. And so I think I loved her analogy of saying that as long as you're moving up and moving forward, you're going to reach the goal if you keep at it.
That really is a great analogy, because it is true. We all have different abilities. We're challenged by different things. We have different experiences. We look at the world in a different way. And we do have to take different paths to find our happiness. I think that's a great lesson for kids, for kids to learn at an early age. And if it's something I think that we as parents share with our kids as they're growing up, and helping them understand that it's okay if you have to take a different path. Just because you don't enter college and know exactly what you want to do at 18 years old and get the 4-year degree and jump into that job, if it takes you a few more years to figure it out, and maybe, a community college here and then a college there, that's okay, as long as you keep moving forward.
Exactly. Find a way to do it, whatever it is. And in the book, each chapter is set up where there's basically a chapter about the woman, and then there's 3 breakout kind of sidebars that talk about different useful information or different tidbits, whatever it might be. And some of the sidebars that readers will find in the book are things like how to afford college, because I think that's a big concern. For example, like, how am I going to afford to go to college? But there are ways, what is a master's degree? A lot of people are like, I don't even know what a master's degree is, or an advanced degree, or anything like that. And so kind of demystifying a lot of those aspects in there. And so like, looking through the book, there are lots of cool ones. What's the importance of business cards, and like business card etiquette in different cultures? Because if you are in a professional field and you might go to Japan, and you better know what to do with the business card when you're given one, unless you want to offend somebody. So, so I hope readers will enjoy those different sidebars.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What do you do with the business card in Japan?
So from what I've heard, basically, like a business card is a very, very important token. Basically, it's like being given a gift. And I believe, and I could get this completely wrong, but I believe they present it with two hands, and you're supposed to receive it with two hands, and make sure you look at it, and don't like turn it over and start scribbling something on the back or anything like that. Think of it as like, this is a gift that's been given to you. It's a very important thing. And so I remember hearing one story about somebody who didn't know this, and they went to Japan, and they got this business card, and then the person was like, oh, and I can give you my phone number. They immediately turn the card over and start scribbling the phone number on the back, and the person is just appalled, And so, because that's the kind of thing, like, it could cost you a business deal in the future if you. So wherever you're traveling, I think that, it's good to know the customs dealing there.
Yeah. There should be roadmaps for cultures.
Yeah.
We all sit down, we get the map for the subway of the city that we're visiting or the bus routes, but sometimes we forget to sit down and go, okay, so how do I greet somebody? How do I act if I go to this place? What's the protocol for this place? What's the protocol for that place? Really, when I travel to Latin American countries, it's long pants. It can be 130 degrees outside, but I got my long pants on because I learned from not doing that it's a big faux pas for a guy to walk around in short pants. It's like,
see, I wouldn't have known that. Yeah.
Hello, I'm an American, and don't take me seriously. Hey, how did you? I'm looking at your website. You've written dozens and 24 books.
Probably over 30, about 35, 36 books, yeah.
And wide variety, chapter books and YA books and middle grade novels. Is this your first nonfiction title?
So it's my, I actually snuck out a nonfiction title before this one, so it's my second technically. So I do a combination of traditional publishing and self-publishing. And so, for example, Problem Solvers is a traditionally published book through Chicago Review Press, but I also self-published some books, and I self-published a writing guide a few months before this book. And one of the things I love writing are interactive adventures. I don't know if you remember Choose Your Own Adventure stories.
We've had authors on about those.
So I love writing those books. I have a whole series under a pseudonym, my pseudonym of Connor Hoover, and the series is called Pick Your Own Quest. And there's like 3 Minecraft titles. There's Alice in Wonderland. There's fairy tales. So they're so much fun to write. They're just a blast. I'm actually working on a horror one right now. But I wrote a writing guide for kids on how to write your own interactive adventure because, it's a really fun way to make writing not intimidating. I think a lot of kids don't like writing because they're scared to write it. And, when you're writing interactive adventures, it's just a blast. And so I did write a writing guide on that. But then Problem Solvers is my first novel-length nonfiction book.
Well, I present magic shows at schools around the country, and they're always interactive. They're always different. And in fact, we had an international student with us for a tour. She was toured with me for 3 weeks. And at the end of the 3 weeks, she just turned to me. She goes, "You never did the same show twice. How do you do that?" And I'm like, "This keeps me sane."
Yes. Actually, that's probably better because sometimes I do author presentations and I do the same presentation over and over, and I'm like, oh, I can't even stand to hear myself talk anymore sometimes by the end of the day.
Yeah. When you do something 300 times a year, you want to change it up a little bit. Well, this has been a lot of fun, and I'm really excited. Now that you've had this experience of finding these women engineers and sharing their stories. I know you love writing fiction and that interactive fiction. Are you planning on writing some more nonfiction titles?
So I would certainly love to. I honestly found it was such a different, unique experience, and the fact that, everything about it was different because it was so much more than just the writing. It was down to the coordination of emailing the women and setting up the interviews and finding the nuggets within their stories, And so, it's something I would definitely have a conversation with my agent about and see if there is an opportunity out there for me to write a nonfiction. Yeah, so I would love to do that, especially if it could be something with engineering because, I was an engineer for 15 years. And so this book was like a perfect way for me to bring together my worlds of engineering, which I was passionate about, and writing, which is now my career and which I love. And so it was such a great opportunity for me. And so if there was another opportunity within some type of engineering tie-in, I would love it.
Okay. One last question. Again, it's selfish because this is my podcast and I can do it. Advice for my niece.
So your niece, you said, just went to college, right?
She
Yeah.
just entered. She's in a biomedical engineering program.
I think first off, recognizing that there are going to be challenges. As women, there's so much that we have to fight against. And you just have to recognize that's the case. And I mean, for example, one of these women said, one of the biggest problems not the biggest problems, but one of the biggest obstacles you face as a female engineer is if you walk into a room full of people, right? A meeting. Let's say you walk into a meeting, you constantly have to show your credentials almost ahead of time so people take you seriously, whereas a male doesn't have to do that. People automatically think the male has his credentials or whatever. And so I think recognizing and accepting that while also trying to be the best that you can be, and that doesn't mean you have to be absolutely perfect in whatever it is, but I mean, be the best that you can be professional and check your work, be smart, and then people will learn to respect you till you get to the point where you don't have to be the person who automatically has to show their credentials walking in the door. And I think that's one of the women, Kara Sprague, had said that. She's like, now when I walk into a room or when I make a phone call or get on a conference call, people know me, they respect me, and nobody's questioning my abilities or my authority anymore, And yeah, I love engineering. So if your niece is passionate about engineering, I really hope she sticks with it, and don't let her, think that it's too male dominated, because you know what? It's a great field.
That's awesome. We've had, we need to know where to find you online.
Oh yeah. So my website is pjhoover.com, and so basically you can go to that website, and then even the pseudonym that I mentioned, the Connor Hoover, the Pick Your Own Quest books, there's links to all those through that website and everything like that. But yeah, so on my books page you can see all my books that I've written, tons of different genres. You can see any speaking engagements, if you're interested in speaking engagement or school visits or anything like that, all my information is on there.
I've had a great time speaking about problem solvers. 15 amazing women engineers, and our guest has been the author P.J. Hoover. We hope you've enjoyed this episode of Reading with Your Kids, and will join us for the next exciting episode of the show. Please be sure to connect with us on social media, facebook.com/readingwithyourkids, at Reading With Your Kids on Instagram and TikTok, at Jedley Magic on Twitter. Also, please be sure to check out our YouTube channel, youtube.com/readingwithyourkids. Want to thank the folks who made today's show so wonderful. Of course, we want to thank today's guest, Leticia Ordaz, and her son, Bronx Baeza. We also want to thank our sponsors. I want to thank my amazing team, Fatima Khan, Rory Grady, Chris Doherty, Skylar Strauss, Nick Warner, Kyoko Ito, Kaylin Newland, Kristen Barrett, Sydney Swan, Hannah Rose. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all the support she gives me. Most of all, we all want to thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. And as always, thank you so very much for taking the time to make the world a better place by reading with your kids. I'll be looking for you in the next episode of Reading with Your Kids.
What?